Hello and welcome to the InterPlex. In October of 2025, at the conclusion of the 17th General Conference of the World Academy of Sciences, TWAS, held in Rio de Janeiro, I had the pleasure of speaking again to Brazilian physicist Marcelo Knobel. Since December 2024, Knobel has served as the Executive Director of TWAS, following a distinguished career in research, science advocacy, science communication, and higher education leadership. He is the former rector of the University of Campinas, where he remains a faculty member, and has also held several visiting professorships for his research into nanostructured magnetic materials, with particular focus on superparamagnetism and magnetohyperthermia. In this, our second InterDialogue, we spoke about his new position at TWAS and the important role that TWAS plays in fostering broad collaborations, initiatives, and a collective voice for science and science-based solutions in the Global South. We also spoke about the vital importance of effective science communication with the public, the dangers of misinformation, anti-science, and brain drain, and the surprising and troubling state of science and scientific investment in the US, in Latin America, and globally. Very nice being here with you today.
Thank you.
Wrapping up this incredible TWAS conference. Thank you for the invitation.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
How are you feeling, first of all, after?
A little bit tired, but of course satisfied that the conference went well and everyone is happy. So this is why we do that. It's to really put together people and networking, and this is wonderful. So more than the talks themselves that were very good, the conversations in the coffee breaks, in the lunches, in the dinners are the best part.
Chances for people to get to know each other,
yeah.
Build some long-lasting collaborations, perhaps.
Yeah, that's it.
Great. Well, I think I'd like to start this InterDialogue off learning a little bit more about your personal story. I mean, your career trajectory, which I'm sort of familiar with, is very interesting, but I wonder what's inspired your desire to work so tirelessly in science diplomacy, both at the national and now international level. I know you were born in Argentina, correct? I mean, I wonder if some of your childhood even inspired some of this desire to bring science to the masses.
I don't know exactly why, but because as mentioned even at the end of this conference, we are privileged here, so you have the opportunity to study, I have the opportunity to be a scientist. It's already very few people in the world that is able to go towards this direction, and of course this has much to do with the influence of the family, the parents, and the capacity that they bring together in order to follow this dream of being a scientist, a researcher. I would say that maybe it's something on the DNA. My grandparents immigrated to Argentina from Europe at the beginning of the 20th century, okay. Escaping from hunger. And so, strangely enough, then my parents were born in Argentina, and they were established and were well there, but there was a military coup, and then we had to go to Brazil in 1976. And maybe this idea of the importance of the immigrants for the well-being of society and the importance of knowledge to improve society, maybe that was a factor that made me follow this path. And curiously enough, now I emigrated as well, so it's the third generation of immigration, and I am very glad that I had the possibility and opportunity first on being the rector of the University of Campinas in Brazil, where whatever you do, it's more amplified, so you can impact more people. Mm-hmm. Whenever you are a scientist, of course, you publish, and if you are lucky, in some of my cases, 5 or 10 people read my paper, so the impact of the work is very limited. So having this willingness of impacting more or making our work, giving more people the opportunity to study, to go towards this career of research, that is something very important. And now I am very proud to be the Executive Director of TWAS, which is the organization that exactly works on that, on trying to give more opportunities for the underdeveloped countries.
Yeah, no, it's the culmination of, I know, decades of work. Going a little bit back, just because I was curious and I read it in your profile from TWAS, your father was a scientist and he was exiled from Argentina?
Yeah, well, right? In fact, he was a psychiatrist, professor of psychiatry at the University of Buenos Aires, which is one of the best universities there. And at that period that the military coup took place, he was fired from the university, but especially it was more dangerous for my brothers who were already on the university, and they were under very much danger. And then my father decided, he got an invitation from the University of Campinas, and he decided to go as well.
Right. Yeah,
the situation was
factors.
was not good for critical thinking and any person working in the university itself. As you know, usually in these cases, the universities are always places where the attacks to freedom and academic freedom and all kind of manifestations happen.
Absolutely. At the time, there were a lot of professionals, researchers that left Argentina to Brazil.
Exactly. And this is what exactly happened. I would say a very smart person at the University of Campinas, a Unicamp. Even in Brazil was a dictatorship as well, but at the University of Campinas somehow this person who is called Zeferino Vaz was able to protect the faculty, and he hired a lot of professionals and eminent thinkers, intellectuals from all over Latin America, from Chile, from Argentina, from Uruguay, and then he managed to have these very important researchers and professors starting the University of Campinas, and this made a strong leap in order to be one of the best universities in Latin America.
Oh, that's a great story. So, I'd say an interest, or let's say a direction that we have in common with you, far more experienced than myself, but the issue of effective communication, and coming from institutions, higher education institutions, coming from researchers, individual researchers, research groups, even large collections of academies like TWAS. Can you explain for you what is the importance of effective communication? What do you mean by that as well when it's referring to science in particular?
I think that I was always worried about science dissemination and the importance of attracting more and showing what we really do as a scientist and so on. But after and during the pandemic, I realized that we were going through a very complex time. We have not only ideological views on contrary to science, but also we are going through an era of fake news and deep fakes, and it's very difficult to separate what is true or not. And it's up to us as a scientist, professors, or anyone connected to the university or to the research system, is to engage in this communication on why science is absolutely essential for the future. If we have issues, we have problems, as humanity have always had, we need science to solve them. Otherwise, we don't have any future. And this is something that I don't know if it's clear for everyone, and I don't know if we are managing to use the proper ways to reach the public. I always use an example that I think it's very important. If you take a look on any platform or any social media platform, like YouTube, like LinkedIn, or like Instagram, whatever, take a look, for example, on YouTube. how many subscribers from any university in the world we have. Maybe one of the best is 100,000, 200,000, but there are influencers with 5 million, 10 million, 20 million followers. And this is not the case that we don't have good content, we don't have good, but we are not, I think we are not able to communicate properly with the language that now this generation wants and understands. So my claim is that we should do a more effective, a better communication to reach society in a proper way. So we are failing on that all over the world.
As scientists,
the universities, the research institutes, and so on. Of course, there are exceptions, like, let's say, one case in the United States would be NASA. Mm-hmm. But NASA, you know, has an office maybe of 200 journalists mm-hmm. to do that. And they know that they depend on the public to get funding. And so this is something that it's really important. Other places which are very good to, you know, to communicate are the many places, the private universities that need to better sell their image in order to have some name, in order to have more enrollments and so on. So this is something that usually in public universities we are not very good on doing.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I mean, in your case, you've done a lot of things personally. You write consistently for university news and other publications. You've had a podcast. But you wrote a book. What are some lessons that you can?
But even though the reach is limited, let me give you another example that I always use. I use it like this one, you know, this interview and so on. In many cases, I was used to do it. I went to one YouTube channel in Brazil which has millions of followers, and I did the same interview as we are doing now, as usual, nothing special, nothing fancy, nothing new, and my interview got more than 75,000 views.
Just because it was a different channel?
So because I used a different channel to send the same message. So we are in this kind of world, which is different world. It's not that the people is not interested. We are not doing something well in order to reach those people.
Okay. And do you think reaching is enough? Do you think them just getting the message would make them have a deeper level of understanding?
But it's the first step. I think that I use it to know a person who was very, very interesting in this area of science communication and so on. Now the full name escaped, but he said the important is to, provoke the spark, to take the initiative to provoke the spark. If lucky, we can have something extra. Let me give you an example. A good friend, communicator, which is called Jorge Wagensberg. He was the director and creator of the Cosmo Caixa, which is the science museum in Barcelona. Mm-hmm. He said, look, if we, after a visit on a science museum, the person who came there is not any more afraid of finding himself or herself in the science part in the library or in the bookshop, that's good enough.
Right.
If we manage to have this person to open a science book, it's even better. So this is more or less the idea, is to spark curiosity, to spark knowledge and willingness to discuss. So he claimed that a good science communication is the one that triggers conversations. That's essentially my idea as well.
Sure. Something I wonder with a lot of what I've worked on in this project, as you know, is how to communicate more nuanced, complex topics to a wider audience. I struggled a bit writing for different publications that I always felt like things were getting kind of dumbed down, taking valuable voices out. It felt like sort of a disrespect to the audience also if I wanted to bring them in and really have them understand. Have you had any ideas or experience on how to basically get people to appreciate the different levels of the scientific enterprise or collaborative endeavors or things like that?
Yeah, you are going against the stream, let's say, in this case. For example, long interviews like this one are probably not the best way to approach this new generation that is, consuming more and more very short pieces of information and so on. But there is public for this one as well for the other media. I usually say that the interesting thing is to have diversity. So, for example, in my opinion, to a good science dissemination, it's nice to have other ways, like articles or like short Instagram views or TikTok or whatever. But if you want to go deeper, you have another good media, which is the books. The books you can really capture and go deep into a subject. But now you have also podcasts, which can be really interesting. You have long documentaries, and so there are many ways of reaching different people, and different people have different interests and different ways that they engage and they like and so on. So I think that usually what you get is finding a good niche, a good group of people that you would follow. I always consider that as well we don't understand properly this new generation. There is an interesting phenomenon that appeared also, grown on the pandemic, which is a phenomenon that started in South Korea during the pandemic, which is called gongbao, I think. Yeah. So they switch on the camera while they are studying. If I like this one, you were reading a book and you switch on the camera and you can have that for hours, 6 hours, 5 hours, 7 hours. For me, it's the most boring thing that I can ever imagine. Yeah. But they have millions of followers. Many students find themselves more comfortable studying together with someone else, right. Even if this person, is far or is. So we have to understand these patterns, these different. You could never imagine that a channel that is recording yourself studying would have millions of followers. Yeah, but there are.
Reminds me of close. Someone I grew up with. He founded a business that's just based on people virtually joining each other to get work done. They don't talk to each other. They just sit there, and he's made a business out of that.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's the same phenomenon.
Yeah, same thing.
Anyway, so we have to understand more. There is probably a space and possibilities to all this media, and of course, you have to find ways to keep working. Many people, without this information that we have available, believe it that the book will be over, but the book is still there, or the television, or the cinema, or whatever. They are, we grow upon these things, but there are still followers in different areas.
Yeah. So what you mentioned, for example, this kind of a long-form interview or conversation. The idea, and just to get your feedback, the idea is to be breaking this up to reach different kinds of audiences, but our target audience, I would say, would be both, let's say, experts in other fields, other researchers that might want to take a deeper dive into certain topics, and let's say a well-informed public. But then I'm totally out of touch myself, just to admit it, like how to reach who you're talking about, the other generation that just consumes things very quickly. So I try to get people involved in the project that have ideas. How can we chop up this into small, consumable content? But it's very difficult. I find it very difficult.
Sometimes it's just a luck.
Yeah.
That to have
yeah.
Anyway, let's see. I hope that you manage.
Oh, thank you, Marcelo. And your perspective is very valuable to me. That's why I sort of push on it a little bit. When you talk about effective communication, though, would you say that can be interinstitutional as well, or between researchers? In my experience, there seems to be a real gap in communication between fields, which is part of the idea of the interdisciplinary focus. Have you
Yes,
spent much time thinking about that?
this is a challenge that I think that nobody managed to solve.
Yeah.
This kind of conference that we are doing that, I think, for example, now we just heard a very nice talk about quantum mechanics and quantum physics that probably most of them never heard, and this is a way to not only to learn and to be, culturally more capable, but also to think about possible ideas on connections and using different approaches. It's always good to have different perspectives. Of course, as you mentioned, one talk or one is not enough, but maybe after they go for lunch or dinner, become friends, these kind of things, we have to make it possible to give spaces for this interaction to happen, and this is crucial. I really don't know, and I think that nobody knows how to do it properly. Yeah. It's a
different experiments to
It's
try.
an experiment on trial and error, and many times it happens naturally, and many times it's luck, and many times there are some conferences and some ideas that bring together people from different areas and so on, but I never saw the assessment or the result of this, probably because one is very difficult to do it, and second, I don't know if the success rate is so high.
But I mean, at this conference and just generally in the world right now, there's a number of interrelated challenges, very complex. Would you say that it's becoming much more important to foster these kinds of
and
not just communication but collaboration?
Yeah. And usually, I think that this idea that you have is very interesting, because sometimes that you need a person from a different field and a different perspective, but you don't know where to look and who would be a nice person. So sometimes people are looking for another areas, but they don't know how to address that. Right. So that could be an interesting way to go.
It's certainly part of the hope or ambition.
Kind of a matching system of
researchers from different disciplines. I believe when you were a rector at UniCamp, you fostered certain interdisciplinary initiatives. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
We tried always to do it. At the university level, in our university, we have what we call the centers, interdisciplinary centers. So this we gave a lot of support to them and trying to work together and making more conferences. It's even though we need to have innovation, the ways to do that are the traditional ones. You put people together and have these opportunities. Sometimes it will happen. So giving this space and this opportunity to interact is really, really important.
Inherently, in an organization like TWAS is going to be multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary when you put people together, but would you say some of the local, regional work that you did in Brazil, you've been able to translate it to your work at TWAS to help build the collaborations between people?
Well, we are trying. We are now just starting a collaboration with a foundation here in Brazil to try to this connection of science and arts. We are launching an award on science photography on the theme which is there are glaciers and deserts, in order to discuss the problem of the global warming. I strongly believe in this connection between social sciences and arts to more hard science, so-called hard science. But it's now I am still beginning. So the work, essentially what I try to do is now very, very much managerial. So I'm trying to manage the organization and improve the way that we deliver our products, and of course trying to secure funding for very challenging times that we are facing.
Absolutely. And I'll just mention, I think you apply that perspective from the global to the hyper-local scale. No, your wife is an artist. So
yes, exactly.
So you do connect, and you're a physicist.
Exactly, from the local perspective to the global one.
Exactly. How, with your children, how do those two perspectives blend?
Well, I think, I am suspect to say, but I think that we did it quite well. So my son is now an economist, and my daughter is still in high school, but I think that the curiosity, the spark for knowing more is always there.
That's great. So with TWAS, there's so many things. I've learned so much over these days and read about it quite a bit before coming here. And I think it's better to just ask you, what would you like to speak about in terms of what TWAS is doing?
The TWAS is an organization that was born 40 years ago, created by Abdul Salam, this wonderful physicist from Pakistan, who started the ICTP 60 years ago, and then TWAS afterwards. And he has this idea of promoting an academy of the best scientists in the Global South. In that time it was called the Third World Academy of Science, and then it transformed to the World Academy of Science for the advancement of science in developing countries. And we have the mission to help to enhance and improve science in the Global South, essentially. And he managed to get a funding from the Italian government, who is lasting until now. This is why we are located in Trieste, Italy. And our idea is to promote that. So by capacity building programs, by exchange, South-South exchange, South-North exchange, awards. So we work as an academy. We have a great network of the best scientists in the Global South, but also trying to make more and more this exchange, South-South exchange, Global South communication and collaboration. And this has been working very well in the last 40 years. The organization more or less got a good size. The problem is now that we are facing a very, very complex geopolitical context, and now we have to think really. It's always an opportunity to think our basic target and how we manage to do that, which is our size. And this was done. I did this in my first year as a director, the new strategic planning, and how we will develop that for the next 5 years.
Right. So you joined as the executive director of TWAS just last year, right? 2024. Yeah. Was that intentional? You wanted to join at this very critical time for science and for humanity globally? Did you want to try to expand your footprint, let's say?
As I was told when I was invited to try to become a rector at the University of Campinas, also was very critical, difficult time.
Sure.
And somebody told me, unfortunately, the timing doesn't wait for, it's now it's the time that you have the conditions to start and to do it. And the same happened here. There was a call for a new director, the director that stayed before me, which was Romain Morenzi. He stayed for more than 9 years, I think, and he retired. And then they opened a call. I thought that I could have a good profile for that, and it was this time, and I think we have to face the challenges and try to help as much as we can, even in the very complex moments. If we had to choose, of course, I would choose a better moment in terms of financing and so on. But sure. I think I can contribute, and I can help to keep the organization alive and well, and that would be a good thing to do as well. So I am happy, and I think that I really believe in the mission of the organization, and I'm happy to contribute to that.
What is some of your vision for these years, let's say, assuming that finances are not great and things continue to deteriorate in the geopolitical sphere.
I think that we have, as having a history of 40 years, we have now a record of contributions to many, many countries. So I'm trying to compile that and organize that in a proper way to show to many countries, to the many governments, that we have been extremely important in this relationship, and of course asking for money. For a country, the contributions that we need are not so high, but for us are really important because we are a very small organization, and if we find a couple or 3 or 4 countries that could eventually contribute well, we would be able to grow into this momentum and get more money and got more funding and try to even grow even in this kind of difficult moment. So I am thinking on approaching more governments and more ministries of science and technology, more academies, in order to work together.
I wonder, with the shifting geopolitical landscape, with the U.S. withdrawing so much from international, not just treaties, but funding accords, a lot of projects I've worked on in Colombia and other places have just been suspended completely. With what you're describing now, do you just completely shift your focus? Do you go more towards China or India to support the growth of TWAS or the survival of TWAS, if it's...
Well, India, China, Brazil, South Africa were always the most contributors to TWAS, even before BRICS or even before any, of course, Pakistan, India as well. So these are the developing nations which are more advanced in terms of science, and of course this one would be the best candidates to help, because it's more difficult to get money from a least developed country or very low income country, which has maybe some other priorities. But we will approach any other country. So any really modest contribution makes a huge difference for us. But for the country, let's say even if we are talking about $1 million for a country, we are not talking about a huge amount of money to support an organization which is this rich and this importance in the developing world. Yeah,
this multicultural approach to science, it's very special. I agree. No, I just wonder because, UNESCO is also a funder, partner, and I think they've been hit fairly hard.
Yeah, well, UNESCO, we are indeed a part of UNESCO. We are from the science sector of UNESCO, an office from the science sector. But the agreement is that they don't give us any money. Okay. On the contrary, we contribute to UNESCO with overheads and so on. But we can manage to. I think we can manage to find good partners and sponsors in order to make to keep doing a good work.
Absolutely. In Trieste, is there much collaboration or shared funding sources with the ICTP, the International Center for Theoretical Physics, that you mentioned before?
We share the infrastructure. We are in the same building, and we do many, workshops or talks or activities together. So we have a very good relation with them, and what is called the system of Trieste. We have other organizations such as the university, the synchrotron light source, Elettra. We have the science area. We have the OGS with the geophysical activities. We have many other organizations in the region. So it's a very interesting regions in terms of science. All started by Abdul Salam, ICGB. So we have many other organizations, and we work in a kind of a system. And by the way, we have now support by the region to have a program to bring some of researchers to research institutions there at Trieste. So we are trying and managing to have good relationships both with the local government, with the Italian government, and as well with the other organizations.
Right. Are there any events that you put together?
Yes. Just last week I lost it because we were doing there what's called Trieste Next. All the organizations there work together in order to make a outreach program to the public.
That's fantastic. Well, the first time we spoke a few years ago, difficult times in Brazil. I'm curious, well, things are better now, I know, but have you continued with your research here in Brazil, and what do you have to say about the situation for science in Brazil in general?
Well, it's certainly improved, but it's still far from the ideal. So there are many universities and research institutes that are struggling without funding. Mm-hmm. And this is something that is worrying. The system grew to a size that it's important to keep it working, to keep the infrastructure. Otherwise, we will lose this importance on the science arena that we have now. So I think this is a very important challenge, and it's important that the Brazilian community mobilize itself in order to guarantee that, and to make some pressure into the government to really keep giving enough money for science. We went through a very complicated period in the government before, but we were resilient and strong enough to support that. But of course we need more. We need more and more. And again, it's something like it could be a cliche. Let's say it's science is not expenditure; it's an investment. No, so we have to convince the government on that, not only here in Brazil but all over the world.
Yeah, all over the world. Well, let's push that a little bit further. What are some of the consequences when you disinvest in science? Back in 2022, when we spoke, there was a large concern.
Well, it's difficult to reach again the previous place where you were, and also you face brain drain.
That's what I was going to mention.
And of course, the equipments get stopped. Sometimes they are going. They are not recovering. It's very difficult and time-consuming to grow a system, but it's very easy to destroy it. And this is really what everyone should keep in mind. And therefore, this is happening, unfortunately, in many countries, from the global south, global north. It's it seems to be now a global phenomenon.
Absolutely.
But we have still to see the consequences. Here in Brazil, we clearly saw a decline in the number of PhDs or master theses, and this is a decline on publications, and it will take some time to recover. And from places where the situation is even more dramatic, it will be very complicated. And in this geopolitical game, they will lose certainly many places and many steps.
Can you explain a little bit more what you mean by the brain drain?
The brain drain, smart people. What we have now, it's a market for talents all over the world. If you have a very nice person, well trained, well formed, and this person doesn't have any conditions to make the research, probably will find a place everywhere else.
And then benefit that other place and not come back
Sure.
to their place of origin, and that has all kinds of cumulative
Exactly.
consequences, right?
And even if you have not only this lack of money, but also some kind of persecution or some kind of problem with the visas or with the status of permanent status in the country. So there are many complications that would probably make many important researchers to move and simply go to a place where they are really valued for what they do.
You've spent time, I'm trying to remember where, Stanford, in Boston, at a time in the U.S. Did you ever expect things to be going in the direction that they are in the U.S., and do you have any colleagues there that are considering leaving?
To be honest, I never expected, and I talked to many people, everyone is very concerned, and there are many people, especially the ones who are not of American origin, are many of them are thinking on leaving. Yes,
it's kind of like
of course it's difficult when you have a family, when establishes yourself, of course, but you know, many people did it before. I am a living example of that. My father did it, and the consequences are unexpected. Of course, it's difficult to move, it's difficult to leave family and you know, a lot of things that you build. But in my case, for example, with this movement, I've managed to study in a different place, to become a rector, and now here. So maybe always, as usual, the consequences are unexpected and could be also positive.
But you do have colleagues there that have either left or are considering leaving because of the situation. Yeah. Me as well. There's many. So, well, I certainly want to give some time here to your personal interests, research interests. The question I asked before wasn't, are you still, when you have so much responsibility here at TWAS and so much advocacy work, do you get to do any fun physics research still?
Well, very little. Before I started as a TWAS director, I was the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Magnetism and Magnetic Materials, so I had the chance to at least follow the area and what is going on, but I had to quit on that position. And now I keep doing some research with, things that started many years ago that are still growing, especially in nanoparticles and so on. And I have a master's student on the science communication program that I started to establish, and she is studying how universities are dealing with the programs on climate change and so on. So she's making a survey.
That's at Unicamp?
Yes, at Unicamp. So she's studying how the universities are coping and dealing with this kind of programs. So that's essentially what I am doing, very little now.
Okay, let's talk about your research that you have done from superparamagnetism, and you were mentioning to me yesterday hypothermia, which I guess you're bringing the cross-disciplinary work into the fundamental science and health sciences. That's advanced cancer treatment. Can you explain some of the research?
Yeah, we started by doing my career. Also some opportunities happen, and we have to keep an eye open on what is going on. So I started working with nanoparticles in my PhD. Then it was rather difficult and complicated to produce them, but then we went through a change when we managed to have more chemists together with us in order to produce better nanoparticles. I work with magnetic nanoparticles, and there are basically three elements in nature. We have at room temperature what's called ferromagnetism is iron, cobalt, or nickel. And we work with particles, essentially iron particles, which are very, very small, tiny particles. And my basic interest was to understand how they interact, because they are tiny nanomagnets, and they interact to each other as we do have, whenever you put a magnet together to the other. So that was a basic science interest. But then these nanoparticles started to be functionalized and used in a new treatment, which is called magnetohyperthermia. The idea is that hyperthermia is very well known for treatment of diseases. Even our body, when we get sick, it increases the temperature because the cells usually don't, the viruses don't, usually viruses don't live above 39, 40, 42 degrees. And this was a treatment that was also made and tested many times. Whenever you put a person, in a furnace or some place where it's really, or a sauna, which is very hot, this would eventually work. The problem is that you kill not only the bad ones, but the good ones as well. So there was this group of people that thought that it could be interesting to connect these nanomagnets to a molecular key that would grow, that would glue only on tumors, for example, in metastasis stage or whatever. And therefore, you inject these nanoparticles with these specific keys, and they will, if a person or the rat or whatever you are studying has a cancer, they will stick into them. And then after 15 minutes more or less, you put this person or this patient into a kind of magnetic resonance equipment, so you have a very strong field which is currently changing very, very fast, and therefore you move that nanoparticles which try to follow the field, and these particles are in a tissue, and this tissue, like are rubbing very strongly, they heat. So you can make in the nanoscale a very strong heat, and therefore you essentially burn the tumors in the nanoscale.
And this key that you speak about is able to just identify tumors, cancerous cells?
They glue only on cancer cells.
Okay.
So they glue on tumors. Therefore, you can be very selective in the nanoscale, so you don't have, you kill the cancerous tumors, and you manage to do that without the consequence of a radiotherapy or a chemotherapy that kills also the good ones, the healthy cells. Therefore, it's very localized, and you manage to do that.
Is this beyond the lab phase?
Yeah. There are many companies, and there are some studies that are already in the, how it's called, the phases of patients or real patients. They are studying them in scale. And there are, if I'm not wrong, already one treatment for a specific cancer which was already approved.
Wow, that's amazing. And are you envisioning this scaling to be mainstream?
Probably, yes.
That would be very...
But we keep studying the basic things, how to improve the efficiency, which is the size, the shape, and the, very basic stuff, but connected to this application.
Well, that's what you're doing. You're doing the fundamental science, but it's connecting to the wider social health sector. That's
very interesting, because this is pure interdisciplinarity in place, because we have to work with chemists. As a physicist, we have to work with engineers to develop this equipment, and of course with physicians and so on, in order to treat cancer, and biology to make these molecular keys and so on. So this is a very interesting interdisciplinary work.
No, it's fascinating. Did that come together, you'd say, over time, naturally, or there was a strong effort to bring people together to make that possible?
I think it was a local effort to find partners, and everyone was, when someone had the idea, people started to look for partners, and some of them worked better than the others, but it finally ended up very well.
Beautiful. Well, I want to ask you also about your book. It was published, I don't remember, a couple years ago?
In the pandemic, I think.
Let me try to pronounce it right. A Ilusão de Lua.
A Ilusão da Lua, yes. It's a moon illusion.
The moon illusion. So what that was about, fighting science denialism? Is that the...
No, the idea is to... I had been writing some papers, and then it was this desperation during the pandemic to try to do everything. I started that YouTube channel, I started a podcast, I started, put together all these texts that I have been writing during my life in order to try to disseminate more science and try to contribute more for the development of the science dissemination. It was, I think it's trying to do what I pray is that to being more engaged in the science communication.
Absolutely. Are you still doing any of that, or there's not much time for it?
I wrote a column every month for a journal, but I had to stop after I started this position. But whenever I can, I try.
Are you still writing for university news sometimes? Sometimes,
yes. Yes, I just wrote a paper about the role of universities in climate change, yes.
As far as the YouTube channel or the podcast, that's not something you do?
Not yet, no. It's impossible to do everything, yeah.
Any recommendations for how to do that well, though?
No, what the partnerships, no? Yeah. Always try to find someone. There are many people which are really, really helpful, and for example, I had a very good help for, I don't know anything about editing and so on, and then I found good and nice people that maybe didn't do it for free, but very cheap, in order to contribute for that.
Yeah, it helps to motivate as well to do that. Yeah, I'm in that stage as well. I have some people involved that are, because I don't know anything about it either.
Yeah.
But it's important. I realize it's important, and these kinds of conversations are really illuminating as well. So I don't know, is there anything else you'd like to add there?
No, it's fine. I would like to wish you the best with this project. It's very, very interesting, and I hope it evolves very well.
Well, thank you so much, Marcelo. And the invitation to this amazing conference, it had an impact, it will have an impact, and I met incredible people here, very impressive.
Yeah, very good.
I look forward to continuing the conversation together.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Marcelo.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for this InterDialogue. You can subscribe to be notified of future episodes by following us on our social media channels at the InterPlex. Visit our website, interplex.org, for more interdisciplinary and intercultural content, and to join our growing collaborative community.